All right. Stephen, hi. How are you?
I am very well. Glad we're finally doing this.
Yes, me too, man. I've been looking forward to this for a very long time.
I'm gonna
So
disappoint. Yeah.
I'm going to just dive right in.
Awesome.
What if a machine could remember what your coach taught you better than you can? What if you knew when your form was slipping, when your confidence was fading? What if it said just the right thing at just the right time, like your old sensei used to do? That's where we're going today. This isn't a tech episode. This is about memory, mastery, legacy. Our guest built something that doesn't replace the coach, it remembers them. Stephen Webster is the CEO of ASENSEI, a platform that captures expert coaching and delivers it through motion aware AI. But forget the title, because here's the story. He was a frustrated martial artist. He'd coach his athletes in person and then watch their progress stall the moment they left the dojo. So he built something, in my opinion, that's wild. A system that doesn't just recognize your movement, but remembers the coaching that made it matter. He believes the best coaches don't just correct your form, they shape who you're becoming, and he's trying to bottle that. So let's get into it. Stephen,
Can you do
let's
my
go back
investor
to
pitches?
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Can you do my investor pitches? That's
I do that too.
yeah.
Steven, seriously though, I want to go back to the mat. I've heard you say repeatedly before you learned more in the dojo. Well, you learned more in the dojo than in any engineering lectures or any classes that you made. What made that space so formative for you?
And it's not just me. I think the eureka moment for me was speaking. So I coached. I studied at Edinburgh University in Scotland, computer science and electronics. Um, And, to keep myself sane, I've always played sport and I wanted to have something non-academic going on in my life. So I was a martial artist already. I was already a black belt in jiu-jitsu. Um, and so I joined one of the karate clubs. I was like, which karate club wins the most medals? I'm going to join that one. And so I joined the club. I competed, I captained, and then coached for over a decade. And there was actually a moment, very particular moment with a couple of my students. Many years later, we met up in New York. I happened to be in New York and put a message out on social media, is anyone around? And a couple of my former students were in New York, and they said back to me what you just said I've said, which is, I learned more in the dojo and more on the mat than I did in my law lecture or in my physics lecture. And I realized I'd heard that a lot. Um, and it was my own experience as well as, I'm not in California as an entrepreneur because of what I was taught at Edinburgh University in the lecture hall. Um, I learned to present standing in a circle of 100 people, teaching them karate and teaching them jujitsu. That's where my presentation skills came from. I built a club. That's how I learned to build a business. It's like I had to market at the start of the year and attract students and price, and
Hmm.
like just building a club was like, in some regards, it was my first business.
Yeah.
But it was a passion and it wasn't profitable. It was just a club. So, but I think to unpack your question more deeply, and I'll just kind of give you a surface level answer and let you decide where to pull the threads. Um, Something like a martial art or any endeavor that's hard and worth doing, you learn an awful lot about yourself in the doing of it. And if you if you become in any way accomplished at it, you're the product of good coaching and you're the product of good coaches who invested their time and energy um, in helping you see some potential in yourself that you didn't see, but they did. And so, I'll kind of leave it there for us to unpack. Um, but that's what you learn in the dojo. And a phrase I often use is, if you can show someone their athletic potential, you can show them how to unlock their human potential. And so that's the
That's absolutely
thing I do.
beautiful. I mean, when you first started coaching, was it hard watching them lose progress once they kind of left the room?
The challenge was more so quite unique teaching at a university club is that you're not a 12 months a year club, right? People are you hearing that noise? Sorry to pause us. Do you wanna mute your microphone for a moment? Or mute there's a really strong background, like a fan or something.
It
Are you
just
not
went
hearing
away. There was a static, but it just went
Yeah,
away.
it just
Is
went
it
away
there?
from me as well, yeah, it just went away from me as well.
Yeah, I don't.
Yeah. Sorry to interrupt us, but I just
No, it's
it's
okay. I'm not touching anything.
yeah, yeah. Great. Sorry to interrupt us, but yeah, I knew that if I kept talking, it was just getting louder and louder. So what was our question again? It was,
No, I guess I'm looking for that moment where there must have been a moment when you were like, I get it. You're probably at a university teaching a team, so there's more of a season than a 12-month thing. But they're leaving, and there's some moment where you go, damn it, man. It's like, I can't be there all the time with them. They keep forgetting things, or there's got to be a way that we can continue to enhance their training while I'm not in the room. What I'm trying to find that moment where it just
yeah.
went, oh, light bulb.
You know, it wasn't like one light bulb moment. It was just like, it was even worse, right? It was one of these itches that you're constantly unable to scratch. And I know the itch is both an athlete and a coach. Okay. So, and I was the student and the teacher at the same time. Like you never stop learning. And like, I was very lucky. When you coach at Edinburgh University, I mean, it's a beautiful, one of the oldest universities in the world, beautiful facilities. Who doesn't want to come and visit Scotland one time? So um, I had this capacity that I realized very quickly. It's actually how I met my CTO of ASENSEI. He's also a martial artist down in London, and he was flying instructors from all over the world into the country. And then he was traveling around the UK, taking them to as many clubs as he could so that he could train with them while they were in the UK. So he would get like 10 days of learning just traveling. And I became one of the stops because I realized I can have some of the best instructors in the world come to me, and provided I take them out for dinner, drive them around Scotland, give them a bottle of whiskey at the end, they'll teach for a weekend to my club. And I did the same thing. I would then do a little leg of the tour with them. I traveled around the UK, I traveled around Holland, Norway, Sweden, even the US. I came out to the US and I got to study with these instructors. But in the course of a year, I maybe got, 5 or 6 days with them, and then I'm back in my dojo. I'm like, "How did he do that again? And how did he teach it to me? And am I doing it correctly?" And it wouldn't be until the next, and, this was in the early days of internet mailing lists, and, like, we're all on these mailing lists, like, trying to type and explain to each other how to do something that you'd been taught. We didn't even really have video on the internet at that time. Like, video was pretty shoddy. It was Real Player. I'm aging myself now. Um so as a student, as a learner, I kind of knew that problem of when I can get hands-on with the instructor, like I'm a voracious learner and I learn at a rate of knots, but then that period of time in between, um, I'm atrophying and I'm practicing incorrectly. The thing I think I'm remembering is becoming the muscle memory. And so
Mhm.
there's this process of unlearning that happens the next time I see the instructor's like, no, 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 you're doing that wrong. It's like, oh, I've been doing it wrong like this for 3 months. Um, and then I got to know it as a coach of a university club where students disappear for the summer or they disappear for a month, but between semesters and exams. Um, and so I would observe that students would come back to classes like again, oh, I can see the atrophy. I can see that you've been practicing, but you've been practicing incorrectly, or maybe you've been training at another club and the other club's kind of taught you bad habits,
Yeah.
and I need to unteach those bad habits. And then I would have students reach out to me, be like, "Is there any way we can, later on when we had things like Skype, etc. It's like, can we get on Skype and can we practice together? And can you?" So, I've always been in this world of like, what technology can we try and use? I remember giving a bunch of students Diamond Rio MP3 players. This is pre iPods. Um, and I just recorded audio tracks of myself coaching a class. And then I gave some students an MP3 player so they could at least go home and it was like they couldn't see me. And that was probably, in some regards, the first incarnation of a sensei is, can I just
Yeah.
put the voice of the coach cloned in your ear? And obviously, I couldn't offer any correction. I couldn't adapt. I couldn't personalize. But at least they had those audible cues of me taking them through the class. Step your right leg back, step it behind, turn 45, downward block, et cetera, et cetera. And so I've always been like, I'll shut up now, scratching this itch of like, how can I coach people when I'm not there? And it fundamentally came down to one thing. It will never be as effective as me being there unless somehow the machine can see and understand what that person's doing and be adaptive and personalized in the moment.
That that is brilliant. I mean, your first real inclination to scratch that itch began with audio. And this, I'm going to segue into inviting the listeners along. A quick question for anyone listening right now. I want you to think about what Stephen just kind of dived into. That one person who coached you when you were about to give up. Not the person with the most knowledge, the one with the right words at the right time. You've got them in your head right now. I know you can hear them. Their words. That's who this episode is about. And Stephen and I are going to get further into that down the road. But Stephen, then you fast forward, and I'm sure there's so many podcasts out there where you go into history. I'm looking more into philosophy for us here. So we've both used fitness apps. In fact, much of my work is to examine and play with them. I've tracked steps, I've seen smart mirrors, but to me, you've made it clear movement can't be learned by watching a video. Why?
I think you know, we all have different modalities of learning. Some of us are visual learners, some of us are auditory learners, some of us are kinesthetic learners, right? It's not really as clear cut as that. We lean into those different senses, visual, auditory, and kinesthetic. We lean into them differently depending on the task at hand, um, and also we lean into them differently given our competence at that moment in time. I like I'll share a framework with you that I like when I think about coaching. Um, uh, and the analogy I always use to take people out of sport is like, I want listeners to imagine, go back to when you were first learning to drive, that first time you're driving stick, there's a clutch, the car's shuddering everywhere. Like, yeah, the first time you get in the car, you're unconsciously incompetent at driving. You have no idea just how bad you're gonna be at this moment in time, right? And that's, uh that's the first time that's gym intimidation, right? That's the first time you walk into a yoga class or you walk into a karate class or you get in a swimming pool and you can't swim. It's like, I don't even know how hard this is gonna be or how easy it's gonna be for me. I'm unconsciously incompetent. In that moment, the job of the instructor, the job of the teacher is to make you consciously incompetent. It's like, I'll show you what it looks like. I'll show you what we're going to do. I'll explain it to you. And now you're going to know what you should be doing. So you're conscious, but you're not going to be able to do it yet. You're incompetent. And that demands a specific type of teaching. So in that moment, if I was teaching you karate and you're consciously incompetent, it's like, let's go through this together in steps. I just want you to stand feet shoulder width apart, like something you already know how to do, right? So I'll maybe use an analogy. It's like, yeah, it's like you're standing in line, weighing at the bank, feet shoulder width, your shoulders are above your hips. Good. Now step your left leg forward. Do you feel how your weight move forward? So I'll kind of really, in coaching, we call that whole part, whole coaching. I'll show you the whole thing, but now we're going to take it down into parts and eventually we'll put the parts back together. And now you've moved to that stage of learning. Now you're consciously competent. And this is the moment where you're driving in that car and your mom or your dad are kind of gripping the chair and you've got the wheel, you're driving, you're doing it. But if you get distracted for a moment, like you see your friend walk past and you wave at them, you're hitting the car in front or you're running a red light, because when you're consciously competent, you know what you should be doing. And if you're putting your attention into it, you can do it. But as soon as you're distracted, it starts to go away. And that's where you build muscle memory and that's where you build repetition. And so now, in that mode of learning, I believe visual learning becomes less important and kinesthetic learning, just muscle memory, starting to just sometimes it's important to do 100 reps that are wrong and not have anybody correct you, right? It's just, your body will figure out by itself that when I do it this way, it feels natural. When I do it this way, it feels hard or sore. So that's, we've gone from unconscious competence to conscious incompetence. Now we're in the world of conscious competence. If I think about it, I can do it, but, don't distract me or I'll start making mistakes. And then now, most of us, you would argue, we drive our cars with unconscious competence, right? We don't even have to think about it. We
Yeah.
can we can drink a
Most.
Diet
Mo
Coke, eat our, lunch and text somebody at the same time as driving. Obviously, I don't text anybody while I'm driving. My car won't let me anymore. But unconscious competence, that's us getting into the realm of mastery, right? It's like, we've mastered the thing. And now we're in a position that we can teach that thing to someone else. So that's kind of, I don't know if that's helpful, but that's a
No, it's
framework and a mental model I love to use when I think about what's the best imaginable coaching experience. And it depends where you are in that stage of learning. And I'll bring a different kind of coaching to you every time. But bringing it back to my world of sport and fitness and healthcare and physical therapy, it doesn't matter whether I'm speaking to you or I'm showing you, I have to see you. I have to be able to see what you're doing with
yeah.
some knowledge and understanding of how well you're doing it, given the stage of learning you're at. Does that make sense?
Oh, perfectly. I mean, it's beautifully said, and I love that framework. What I'm interested in is there must be a name that comes to mind when I ask you, there was a sensei or a coach in your
Alex
past,
Chapman.
there it is, that just stuck because I've had plenty of coaches. I played lots of sports, competed, I've had trainers, I've had fit pros, but there's always that one that basically planted that seed that was just perfect. They did things that just stuck and made sense, and you just named him. Name him again for the audience.
Alec Chapman. I still see Alec on Facebook. My old so he was my jiu-jitsu instructor when I was 7. And he was my jiu-jitsu instructor. I still think of him as my instructor, but I haven't been on the mat with him in, probably 15 years.
He always will be.
But, I mean, he coached me all the way. I still trained at that club even through university. I would go home and I studied kind of a couple of hours from where I grew up, partly because I didn't want to detach myself from the jiu-jitsu club. It was that important to me. That club was that important to me. And so I trained with Alex probably from 7 until my mid-20s in jiu-jitsu. And, when he first started coaching me, we were just like a club in a school. We'd, rent a room in the school and lay the mats down, and he'd teach the club, and he didn't make any money teaching. It was the fees were enough to cover the hall costs and to buy mats and buy pads and whatever. He worked in a store in town, a department store, a clothes store in town, and he didn't drive. Probably still doesn't drive. And he would just 4 times a week, he would walk from work at 5:30 across town, teach us jujitsu for 2 or 3 hours, and then somebody would drive him home. And, once I passed my driving test and I could drive, I picked him up every class and took him to class. And he was a mentor for me. And he was, just a guy that loved jujitsu. And I see on Facebook, I mean, he hasn't changed, in
We
decades, and
all
he's
owe
still
him
coaching.
a big thank you.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
think he planted the seeds to create Stephen Webster, who's sitting before us today, who's created so much for us. So I think we all owe him a big thank you. That's it. He planted those seeds so long ago and watered them just enough along the way that it flourished within you something that stuck.
And just, the way he coached became the way I coached because you mirror, and that was my first job coaching. I was coaching when I was probably 13 or 14. It would start with, every Sunday, it was the kids' class. And so when I was 13 or 14, I became the assistant instructor. I was his sidekick. And it was like, could you go and teach the green belts today? And could you teach them this, that, the next thing? before you know it, it's I'm not going to be able to come to class. Here's the keys for the building. Could you open up, put the mats down, take the money from the parents, teach the class? I'm like 15, like opening up a class and teaching a class. And then before you know it, even as a sort of in fact, this is before I was 14 because I got my black belt when I was 14. As a brown belt, I was even coaching assistant coach at the adult class. I would get to train with the adults, and I would be given the white belts or the yellow belts and go and teach those guys this. And so, from a very early age, I was coaching. Can you see where the passion comes from?
Yeah, yeah.
um, but I was coaching like Alec. I was basically using his words and using his demos and teaching exactly the way he taught. Now I'm running my own karate club at Edinburgh University. I'm still teaching the same way. And just kind of funny anecdote, my karate club had a reunion about 10 years ago back in Edinburgh. Um, and I was back there, and the students were kind of demonstrating to people that were like even more old timer than I was. People that had been in the club in the 80s. The students are up there teaching. I remember one student in particular, and he'll like this podcast because I know he watches a lot of the stuff that I'm on. So Jason O'Toole. I remember watching Jason standing in the middle of the mat teaching. I'm like, you're even using my jokes. Like
Uh,
it's it was just kind of funny to see, like, again, it's that stage of, in martial arts, there's another framework we could unpack if you like. It's called Shuhari. It's the stages of mastery. Um, and you start with imitation, and eventually you have your own style that's just uniquely yours that actually becomes the tradition. But there's a stage you inevitably go through where it's imitation, and I was like, he's just like mini me up there right now in the way he's coaching.
Awesome, awesome. Well, I mean, it shows something, I think, deeper, that it's more than just a coach. It's more than just a sensei. It's at some level, at 13, 14 years old, you even discovered a passion for helping others to improve, helping others to thrive, helping others to flourish in whatever endeavor they were doing. Right there, it's on the mat at that point. But I think it was instilling in you something where this is part of me. I like helping others. And here you are building stuff that's helping potentially millions upon millions. So thank you. I mean, I want to unpack a little bit about how a sensei works, but not the specs, not the tech itself, more the philosophy. What are you trying to preserve that I would say most others in your same space are ignoring?
I mean, I think philosophically, we started with the notion of, what if we could democratize access to world-class coaching? That sounds like a mouthful, and it is a mouthful. It's kind of a little too mission statement-y, but that was it. It's like, what if everybody could have an Alec Chapman? What if everybody could have a coach that is invested in them, invested in this part of your journey along the tradition, whether that tradition is baseball or karate, right? Um, Somebody that is invested in teaching you what they have learned, and being patient with you, however long it's going to take you, it's going to take you. And I think the thing that fundamentally I felt had to be different is, we learn on our own time. We don't learn on a 60-minute VHS cassette or a 60-minute DVD or a 45-minute streaming class. You know, that turns us into like a stamp collector, right? It's like, I've done that workout. Where's the next one? It's like, that's not how mastery works. It's not like, how quickly can I get through the content? It's like, how methodically can I absorb the content? And we all move at our own pace. And so, philosophically, I mean, I'm kind of a nerd about modeling excellence and mastery and learning, and it's just something and I feel like I should lay down on a couch here. You're asking me deep questions, but it's
Don't lay down.
I was almost like, this is interesting. I'm hearing these words coming out of my mouth for the first time. This is interesting. If you're a founder, you probably have imposter syndrome. you probably like everybody's going to find out one day. Everybody's going to figure out that like I am just winging this. I don't know what I'm doing. I've never done it before, you know. And anyone that tells you otherwise is bullshitting you. Like it's
Yeah.
we're all for a decade. People are going to find out.
We all suffer and it continues.
And it continues. And so you need to kind of learn to speak to that voice, not let that voice speak to you. And then as a martial arts instructor, it's very similar. And that's the analogy I'm kind of like, seeing about myself for the first time. But I remember, shout out to Jared O'D, one of my dearest friends, and we trained together. We studied together for a long time. Who I also met through my CTO, Bill. Jar was another leg on the coaching tour. He was Stirling University, Edinburgh University. Um, and I remember two moments. One was just before I started coaching the club, kind of sitting there with Jar, and I'm like, I don't. He was like, and Jar went on and lived in Japan and has studied Japanese culture deeply. He's like, nobody's calling me sensei. Like, I'm not ready to be called sensei. Like, that word means stuff. Like, so
Yeah.
he was like deeply like the imposter was like right there. And I was the same. I'm like, "Ooh, this is different. Like, I'm now walking in and this is my club and these are my students, and I actually want to teach in a very different way that's non-traditional, and I don't, which is very me. And I don't think that's gonna go down particularly well either, and, like, how do I feel about that? And so, I think that was a big thing. It's just like that kinda general imposter syndrome of, like, "I don't know if I can do this."
I love it. I mean, you did, and you're doing it
Yeah.
still. I mean, we've both been coaches and we understand. I think where I'm going is you said something about, I thought feedback loop or the way that you set things up, but we understand that so much of what a coach does, it just isn't verbal. It's in the timing. It's that feedback loop. It's the feel. When you set out to digitize coaching, what traits were kind of like your non-negotiables for you to protect?
Well, I think it's funny, like, if you were to go back to some of the original documentation from over a decade ago of how will a Sensei work? And at this time, it's probably just my CTO, Bill, and I, my third co-founder, Ross. I mean, he came on like quickly thereafter, but Bill and I had written syllabuses together, right? For a period of time, I would fly Bill up from London to be that stern black belt that nobody knew that was walking around during the gradings, when you're doing your belt tests or your gradings. And and Bill's a phenomenal martial artist, and I would invite him to come and teach at my club as well. And so we both had this kind of common frame of reference of white belt to black belt. We'd written syllabuses before. And we had provocative points of view on the way karate is taught is in the wrong sequence. Not to get too much into karate, but
Mhm.
almost every karate club in the world at the time, I like to think that a small number of us changed this, but at the time, you would start practicing solo almost until you were a black belt. You never got your hands on another person. You would stand there doing forms and stand there in lines doing drills. Um,
Learning the dance.
Learning the dance, yeah, learning
Yeah.
the movements. I liken it to like when you used to learn to write and you were joining up dotted lines, and it was just teaching your hand to move through the shape, but you weren't really writing cursively yet. Um, so much of karate was taught like that. And then when you become a black belt, now you would spar, you would enter competitions, you would try and oftentimes the first time somebody sets on a mat in a competitive environment is the first time somebody's actually tried to hit them and score on them, and that's the wrong time. And
Yeah.
then you become a black belt, and they try to teach you to get to closer and closer range and close range combat. And now you're like 7 years into being comfortable being 6 feet apart. So, just as one example, I inverted that. The very first day in my class, you would start nose to nose with the person in front of you, and we would work on our elbows and blocking elbows together. And so from day zero, my students were comfortable here, and they would work the range in the opposite direction. So
Right.
I share that as an example of I really thought a lot about how do you construct a syllabus to maximize an outcome that by the time you are a black belt, you can do X. And so bringing it back to ASENSEI, the kind of non-negotiable was it can't be how many videos have you watched. It can't be how many workouts have you done. It can't be how many badges have you got or how many streaks have you got. Um, Philosophically, I have to get you from white belt to black belt. And that means for a period of time, um, there is a set of competencies, a rubric, and that's literally the language we use if you got into our SDK documentation. There's a rubric that says, um, what does acceptable look like all the way to what does the let me go back to karate. If I was teaching you a roundhouse kick, there's a version of a roundhouse kick I'm going to be like, it's not a very good roundhouse kick, but I'll give it to you. One, two, and I'm counting them, but it's like we got work to do. And then as a coach, I've got a bunch of things that's like, well, what's the first thing I'm going to teach about a roundhouse kick? Well, I don't want it getting thrown out to the front. I want it coming around. So I'll teach that first. And now I might teach the pivot on the back foot. And now I might teach opening your hips. And I've got all my criteria. In essentially, we call them nuances. I've got all these nuances of movement. And as a coach, I have a point of view on the order of importance of those nuances. And really, teaching you to master that technique is to get you doing what we call the lowest common denominator of the technique, the honest attempt. If I can get you doing the honest attempt, now I can chisel you from where you are to where you could be. Okay. I can just carve out good technique. And that's either by teaching the addition of what we call positive nuances or elements of good technique, finesse, um, or removing the elements of bad technique, bad habits. You're telegraphing that kick. You're not turning your back foot properly. You're closing your hips off. So the the addition of positive nuances and the removal of negative nuances in order. And then once I've seen you do that thing enough without any of the negatives and with all of the positives, it's time to move on and teach you the next exercise or teach you the next
Beautiful.
version of that exercise. And coaching and mastery is just that ad infinitum. It's a lifetime of just doing that, just getting incrementally better at the thing and progressing. And so non-negotiable number one is whether we're teaching yoga or we're teaching Pilates or we're teaching boxing or we're taking you through your physical therapy, there has to be a syllabus and there has to be a rubric and there has to be progression. And progression is retention. Like if you're getting better at the thing, that's why you keep doing it for a lifetime. It's because you've got so much more to learn and you keep doing it. So I'll pause there for now, but that was
No,
probably the biggest non-negotiable is um, we're not taking people through workout videos. We're taking people through a syllabus and a lifetime of learning.
that's beautiful. I mean, I wanna say were there, but it's almost like, are there things along the way that you've realized maybe with our current limitations in tech can't be replicated? I mean, and that's okay, but are there limitations at this current point?
I mean, it's a funny question for me to try and answer because I don't give much attention to limitations. I focus more
Love
on
it.
what you can do than what you can't do. I mean,
That glass is half full.
yeah, we haven't figured out how to bend light round corners. I'll let you know when I do that one. So, as long as light continues to travel in a straight line, um, we're a computer vision based company, right? We use a camera to observe you. We didn't start like that, but that's where we are, and that's where we'll stay for the very foreseeable. And so we can't make light bend around corners. So, if I'm asking you to coach, is my hand here, but I'm turned this way, you'll never be able to know because you can't see it.
Yeah.
Um, Now, a human coach would just kind of lean around and have a look and like, That's good." The camera can't move around. So of course there's minor limitations, but we work around them. We just, and you know, I used to work for Adobe, and so I'm a student of design and design thinking as well as engineering now. And design thinking really encourages you to think about these constraints as the boundary conditions needed for innovation. Like if you don't have constraints, there's no need to innovate, right? And so
Right.
I much prefer to look at the technical limitations as the constraints that you need to unlock some experience that, I'll put it to you, surely the digital experience should be better than the human experience. Now, someone's going to hear that and be like, "Oh, he's saying that AI is going to replace coaches." No, no, no. And I celebrate coaching, and everybody should train in person with coaches as well as digitally. It's not an either or, but there should be elements of the experience that are better digitally because they're more consistent, they're more accurate, they're more patient, they're more so we can lean into the things that are authentically digital or authentically artificial intelligence, and see them as pluses. So I tend to focus more on like what can this experience do better rather than what's it not doing as well.
So now I don't know, somehow you threw the advisor hat on me. So I got a couple questions because my thought first went to, can we, and maybe you already are, build in inferences or assumptions because you'd use that turn the body and human, you, especially a coach of your level, would be able to kind of infer or assume what's happening, even though you can't see it by the positioning. I'm assuming that we probably can also build that same kind of inference or assumption based into tech, but I'm not sure, do we want to?
Think there's a lot to unpack there. From a raw computer vision problem, like just because you can't see something, do you know where it is? And as humans, we're really good at that, right? Like, you know where my thighs are right now. Like, you've got a pretty good guess, and you're probably right. I'm not sitting in
And I
some
hope he
weird
has pants on.
don't ask me to stand up. I do. Just to get right. But you have a pretty good assumption of like what you can't see where it is, right? It's not like, my legs are bent backwards up behind my shoulders. And so you can train a machine that kind of stuff as well. And it tends to be very domain specific, because, different sports, different modalities of fitness, they put us into different shapes and different positions. But if you're a yoga instructor and somebody's doing a warrior three and you can't see their back leg, you probably know where their back leg is. It would be unusual to be, and you certainly know where it isn't, right? And so in the world of like inferences around computer vision, yes, you can fill in the blanks, but I think your question was a little kind of deeper than that. It's like, just because I'm not seeing something doesn't mean I can't coach it. And to come back to some of what we were talking about earlier, I will give you a sort of technical example. Like, Essentially operates on this notion of we have lots of different coaches. We try and not get people too bogged down into the weeds of computer vision and pose
Right.
estimation and like whatever. It's like being a speech recognition company and talking about how good your microphone is, right? It's like the
Yeah.
smart stuff happens way past the microphone.
Yeah. Everyone but the engineers left the room. Okay.
Yeah, it's like, is it 44 kilohertz or 96 kilohertz? It doesn't matter. It doesn't recognize Scottish accents. Anyway, what was my point? Oh yeah, so ASENSEI, if I was to explain, and I'm not going to try to, but if I was to explain our software development kit to you, I would start by saying, look, we're giving you a bunch of different coaches, and each coach has a particular set of skills. Okay. There's a rep counting coach. That's all they do. They just use all this amazing tech we have to say, I'll count reps for you. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's it. And I'll tell you when they hit a target. Um, Another coach might be a jump coach. And a jump coach is like, I know where the floor is. I can calculate the vertical displacement of any part of the body. I'll tell you the center mass height off the floor. I'll tell you, like, the jump coach has a particular set of skills and knows his countermeasure jump from his whatever other jump. And we've got like 12 or 13 of these different coaches. But one of the coaches we have, we call the get in position coach. And the get in position coach is very good at recognizing I'll give you a good example, like a push up. Why would I start recognizing a push up until you're actually prone in the right position with your hands and your feet on the floor? Any attempt to recognize what you're doing at that moment in time is pointless. And if all I can see is your feet, like if you've decided, why would you do this? But if you've decided I'm going to put my feet towards the camera and my hands over here, you know, we probably still manage to count your push-ups, but like, why are we doing this? Like, can you kind of get into this position? And so the
Yeah.
get in position coach is able to do something that a real human coach would do. It's the equivalent of oh yeah, that looks good. The get in position coach can ask you to sit up, to stand down, to turn a little bit here, to move your hand there. And so that's a really human part of coaching. It's like in the middle of all that we're doing, let's just fix your position. And so, I share this as an example of like, again, there's kind of a theme that's come out in our conversation so far. The constraints aren't constraints. The constraints reveal this innovation of a get in position coach. And we've got customers now who are like, They love the get in position coach. Why? Because for them, their good coaching protocol is before any exercise, I'm going to make sure you're set up correctly. And so they use
Yeah.
the get in position coach for that. It's like, yeah, if you're not set up correctly, you're never going to be successful. So let's get that part right. And so now we're delivering the best imaginable coaching experience. And it came from this like, light doesn't bend around corners. What are we going to do about that?
That's beautiful. Hey, quick 1 minute Rogan break.
Go for it.
I do not know why I do that. It's probably because I drink this big 2 liter and
No, I'm the
because I
same.
get up at 4 in the morning to start my day. And next
Uh,
thing I know, noon is when it starts just kicking in. So I
You'll
apologize
never
about
see
that.
me at 4 a.m. in the morning unless you've been out for the night with me. That's
I'm an early bird. It's like nobody else is up. I can get so much done. I'm so
I wish
productive in the
that were
morning.
me, but at this point in my life, I acknowledge that that is not me.
Why change? If it's working,
Yeah.
why? So my second thought with my advisor hat on is I've been thinking a lot about how we're in the we're in the business of trying to change behaviors. And it's very difficult when you're working with teams who want to create something or do something to change behaviors in a customer or a patient or a client, and maybe they don't match up from a personality profile, behavioral assessment. I mean, there's all these the book The Color Code really kind of kicked in for me. I can't remember the author's name, but is there a way, do you think, that if we could collect more data or information upfront from clients using a Sensei tech that, let's face it, some of us prefer a coach that's in our face. Some of us prefer a coach that's kind of just, oh, nice and supportive and just there. And having the ability for our tools or even the systems that maybe the humans are using to help interact with other humans to be able to know, well, Bob's not the right matchup, but we're going to put Jennifer with him because that's more, you can tell from this assessment that she's red, he's red, or whatever you want to use. Is there some kind of thought process going on in the back rooms where you guys, or maybe you're already ahead of this, that you're thinking about how can we do this?
We're not thinking about it, we're delivering it. So I'm excited to share this with you. And you didn't know this, so this is such a great question. Strap in. So today, ASENSEI is this rich engine of real-time data. Like we are literally an on-device, real-time fire hose of data. All those coaches that I was describing to you, basically, this is the way the software essentially works. Is like turn the camera on, tell ASENSEI what exercise the person's doing. So you're doing an overhead squat or you're doing a roundhouse kick, and then let a sensei enlist one or more instructors. I'd like the rep counter, the get in position coach, and the jump coach. And like, I want you all to tell me what's going on from your perspective, and then fire hose that data up to the application. And that's essentially the loop that a sensei is sitting in. So real time, every single rep that you're doing of an exercise, or every single, whatever, real time, this fire hose of data is kind of going up to the application layer, and our customers, whether it's a strength training machine, whether it's a fitness mirror, whether it's a digital fitness app, whether it's a physical therapy app in a browser, today all of that data is powering the UX, right? So a rep counter is updating on screen, a video plays with a coaching cue, an audio file plays, we do text to speech. And so that's the state of the art. I say today, but that was the state of the art, because today's about to change. So that was the
Oh,
state of the art, right? We then realized, probably about 3 years ago, 2 years ago, um, that's an awful lot of data, and our customers are overwhelmed with like, what do we do with that data? So we introduced 2 or 3 years ago a layer in our SDK called Coach IQ, and the idea of Coach IQ was, as a coach, and this is me, literally, I can't tell you how many times a day, in a technical conversation, I'm picturing myself in the Trust Upper Hall in Edinburgh University, standing in the middle of this wooden hall, and I'm coaching, and I'm like, how did I used to coach? So with all of this information that's surfacing to me as a coach, I'm making decisions about what am I going to remember for later and what matters in the moment, and how am I going to turn that into, again, using my unconscious competence framework. If you're consciously competent, right? So you know what you should be doing. All I need is a coaching cue. Like if I've already previously established with you a coaching cue, um, you know, I want to see a sheet of paper under your heel. You have no idea what that means, but anybody that's ever trained karate with me knows what I mean by a sheet of paper under your heel. It's like I don't want
Just
your foot
barely on your
planted.
toes.
I don't want, yeah, yeah, just a little bit more on your exactly. Well, you do because you play sport, and so you know what that means. Um, so if you're consciously competent, I can just come in with a cue that we've pre-established before, and oh yeah, 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 yeah. If you're unconsciously incompetent, I need to stop and show you something and explain it, and then let you go and practice it. It's a different kind of intervention. So anyway, Coach IQ was this. Can a sensei also take care of the way you will coach, the way you will use all of this information fire hose that we're feeding you, so that engineers and product teams aren't having to think so hard about how to deliver the best imaginable coaching experience. We actually know how to do that, and so we'll help you do that. And now you just listen to the ASENSEI SDK, and it's just going to say, play this video, play this sound, do this text to speech, and it'll match however your coaching staff have told us this is the way we want our customers to be coached. So that's the state of the art at ASENSEI, or it was, large language models, right? So everybody's now thinking about, well, wait a minute, can I use ChatGPT? And ChatGPT is the compressed internet. It's like internet.zip. It knows absolutely everything, right? And so you can ask it, how do I throw a roundhouse kick? You just don't know. Is it Stephen Webster at Emory University Karate Club that the answer came from? Or is it some keyboard warrior on Reddit that, has seen a few movies and this is how you don't know. Now, it's not as bad as that, but that's not so. Fast forward to today, we've been really excited by this. We've developed a specialized LLM for just coaching. Doesn't know how to make risotto, doesn't know the capital of Denmark. It's fine tuned, and we've narrowed its knowledge to whatever we want to teach about sport coaching. So all the things you've touched on, right? Behavioral psychology, exercise science, like whatever knowledge that we feel is the knowledge, the best imaginable, should be the foundation of any coach, whether they're your physical therapist, your dance instructor, your, whatever. The foundational knowledge about how to transfer knowledge about human movement from one person to another. Our LLM is grounded. That's the sort of the technical term. It's kind of grounded in that knowledge, right? And we've got much more running on the edge as well. So um, as well as having like a specialized large language model that you
Mhm.
could in theory communicate with, well, you need to be able to communicate with it, right? It needs a voice. And so we've taken the kind of voice cloning that you previously had to do in the cloud, and we've put that voice cloning on device. So we can now clone the voice of any coach, and we can text to speech whatever comes out of an LLM. We can text to speech that voice, right? And we can do it with conversational latency. So you can now talk back and forth with your coach. You can ask questions. The coach can check for understanding. Really good coaching principle, right? Check for understanding.
Yeah.
Um, so now we're moving into the world of conversational coaching with a specialized LLM that understands sports coaching. And what we're going to offer our customers is now you can layer in your coaching philosophy, your syllabus. We call it bring your own context. Like, what's the additional context that you want to bring onto our specialized LLM that's running on your device so that we understand your educational philosophy, we understand your instructors, we understand your tone of voice. So I'll not go much further than that on. So we're calling this coaching intelligence. This is the coaching intelligence, but I'll really emphasize this is running on device. Like we've got this so that it's not Chat GPT in the cloud, right? Nobody's, if you haven't figured out that you can't afford Chat GPT for your 100,000 members generating workout plans, and like the token costs are reason enough, never mind the latency. and never mind the privacy issues, and never
Yeah.
mind the, you know, your members in your fitness app are, asking questions about what TV show they should watch, and they're getting an answer because it knows. So we've got this specialized running on device coach or platform vessel that you can put your own coaches into. So now I want to come all the way back to the answer to your question. Um, and I think this is a really good example. I'm making it up as I go along, but I think it's a really good example of, is there a world in which digital is better than in real life? Well, Vince Morris might be the best karate instructor in the world to go and learn how to do leg sweeps from, but you might not like his teaching style. Like, he might be just a little too, I hope Vince isn't watching. He might just be a little bit too aggressive or a little bit too, and you like a more gentle, I'm quite as an instructor, I was never the militaristic karate instructor that barked at my class. I treated them like university students that were studying PhDs, and we learned together. So you might want Vince's knowledge, but in my teaching style, right? An LLM can do that. An LLM can do that. We can say, um, so that's stage one, is like, you just explicitly choose. You might self-select it. Like, I like a teacher that just breaks things down, explains them. I like to feel like I've learned the theory as well as the practice. That might be someone else might be like, I just want to get, beasted. I just want to, get the reps in. Screw at me if I'm not going hard enough. Ross Middleton, if you're watching, that's you. And so, everybody's got their preferred learning style. But I'll offer you one more thing, because we can go one step further. Um, this is kind of getting into the exercise science of cueing, right? If I know you're a visual learner, I will use visual language in my cue. It's like, I want you to picture a string pulling your head up to the ceiling, right? I want you to picture. I said that because as a coach, I've learned that you're a visual learner. And I can think, again, I'm back in my dojo, and I can see Henry Whalen walking around the mat as I'm teaching. Everyone else is sitting there watching me, and he's walking around, walking around. Why? Because he was such a visual learner. He had to see it from lots of different angles, right? And so now that I knew Henry was a visual learner, I would know to teach him with visual language and metaphor and cues. Someone else that I know is a kinesthetic learner. And how do I know? Because they're constantly like, Sensei, could you do it on me? Like, I saw
Right.
you do it to somebody else, but could you do it on me? And now can I do it to you? And they needed the touch, feel, kind of adjustment. That was a wrist lock. they need the they need the kind of the touch, feel. They need to feel it to learn it, right? So that's how I used to teach as a coach. But now think about an LLM. We can test and learn. We're in the world of, like, A/B testing or multivariate testing. It's like, if I deliver you visual cues, let me explain it a little better. If a sensei spots you're making a mistake, the sensei technology spots that you're making a particular mistake, intervenes with a coaching cue, and that coaching cue sticks. Like, that cue was the thing that got you to fix the thing, and it sticks, it adheres. That was a good coaching cue for you. If I use a coaching cue and you still make the mistake, and I use a coaching cue and you're still making those, a great example for me is like, you'll have your own coaching cue, but the position, your scapula, your scapular retraction when you're doing a deadlift or doing lots of exercises, I've got, if you watch me, one of my shoulders always sits kind of lower. I think it's like years of karate. That shoulder tends to sit lower. And I've always struggled with the cue to rotate my scapula until one day, and this is probably going to be the nugget of the podcast, nothing to do with like AI. One day somebody said, I want you to imagine you're grabbing two door handles on two doors and you're turning them and opening them at the same time. I'm like, that's what it feels like. Why didn't you just give me that cue before? Like, what was all this pocket your shoulders nonsense? Well, pocket my shoulders? But that cue suddenly, so that's kind of telling me I'm sort of, that's tapping into my visual and kinesthetic. I can see it, I can feel it. It's like, I totally know what that scapular rotation feels. I'm doing it right now. I totally know what it feels like. So I want you to now sit with this idea that a sensei can intervene, observe whether that intervention adheres or doesn't, and over time start to learn, this is the kind of coaching and this is the kind of language. So you may have chosen your coach. You may think you're, training with this particular coach on the platform or that particular coach on the platform, but they are adapting their coaching style, their tone of voice, their choice of cues in a way that they probably wouldn't do in real life. The real life version of that coach, this is the cue I always use, right? Or this is the cue I
Mm.
typically use. But the AI version of them, the AI clone of that coach, has this versatility to see the numbers and see the data. And so I wonder if the AI version of the coach might be better at picking the right cue for the right athlete at the right time.
Wow. Wow, that's exciting. And you're already in that space. You're way ahead of, well, you're so far ahead of everybody.
It doesn't feel like it, but yeah.
You are
Yeah.
so far ahead of everybody. It when I'm describing a sensei to others, I'm like, it's Tesla, because Tesla started self-driving cars and gathering that data 13 years ago.
Right.
Sensei started gathering that data years ago. Everybody can try to kind of follow suit, but they're already behind. They're already behind. So you were ahead of this way before I think people were really truly trying to dig into it. Can I get your permission and pull us into kind of a weird corner for a minute?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Because I've been thinking about this a lot. I mean, and honestly, if 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 I was on your team, which I'd love that, but here's where the strategist in me goes. Let me try to unpack. We live in a world that's losing its elders and that knowledge and that wisdom, not in age, but in availability. I mean, I'm talking about like coaches, teachers, mentors, guides, people who've been through that fire and know how to speak to that version of us that doesn't even believe in ourselves yet. But the way we've built modern systems, education, technology, work, it feels like we've extracted the knowledge, but we forget about timing, the rhythm, the pause, all the stuff you just described that coaches are so good at, the breath before the breakthrough. And now we're asking machines to kind of fill that gap. So I'm wondering, like, somebody that's you've been in this space so long, and I'm love to get your take on it. What are we actually building? I mean, I don't believe that it's just AI. I think it's more like, is it ritual? Is it remembrance? Or is it that ghost of that coach that we heard in our heads saying again when our lungs are burning, hearts are racing? It is it presence? Is it in digital form, I guess? Do any of those examples resonate with you?
Think about this a lot. I think about education a lot. I mean, education is, it's not even adjacent. I mean, that's the business we're fundamentally in, physical education. There's a lot to unpack there. I presence landed with me, um, because I feel like, to your point, the knowledge is all there. And it can be in book form, it can be in video form, it can be in seminar form. And, the internet has driven us towards a like, you can learn it in 7 days form, right? It's like, and I think one of the things I wish for people is to find something that they're curious about for life. Like, it's like, and, I'm very lucky to have got to know through a sensei some phenomenal coaches and athletes that have operated at a level I would never have. I coached the best university club in the UK, but I was no Olympic coach. I was no, FA coach. Um, and that's fine. It was satisfying for me. But I've met some incredible coaches and incredible athletes, and they will never stop wanting to be better at the thing they're already competing at the best level in the world at. They're just obsessed with it. And so I'll start there, that I think there's opportunity for us to really help people discover a passion. Um, and I hope that the kind of coaching intelligence that we're able to bring to market makes the discovery of that not superficial. Again, Like, we're still delivering Jane Fonda workout videos. They're just MP4 encoded, and it's true. It's still Billy Blanks. Like the the real innovations have been in the content delivery network, not in the content that's being delivered. It's still a lean back experience. It's still a you're watching the coach, but the coach isn't watching you. And so
Yeah.
that's the fundamental inversion that that's the thing I've felt forever is like, this isn't real until the coach is watching you, not you're watching the coach, right? And so, yeah, I mean, it's a very philosophical question. So I find myself not wanting to just fill the silence with noise here.
No,
But
no. I mean, what it tells me is you didn't build a product. I think more about what you've done as a preservation layer. It's the difference between a coaching platform, which I think a lot of people are chasing, and a coaching archive. I think you're archiving a way of thinking, almost a lineage. And I keep thinking if we can build, I think you said it, presence into a product, then we're not just scaling access, we're extending legacy. It's the kind of stuff I think about obsessively, where memory meets meaning or belief gets transferred through an experience, not just instruction. I mean, I think there's a lot of others doing the tell, show, do, but no review. And then there's no review followed up with a feedback loop. I think a sensei goes that far and even farther. Have you guys like I want to kind of dig into like where you guys explored the kind of emotional UX layer uh, in the consumer side. I don't know how to ask that. You know what I'm getting? I'm like,
no, I do.
okay,
So when I was very lucky when I worked for Adobe, I led the technology side of our consulting business, and my peer ran the UX design team, um, the global UX team. And when he left to go to Google, it's like, why are you going to Google? Like 10 blue links. He invented Google Glass. He was the UX designer for Google Glass. None of us knew Google X existed at the time, and that's where he went. So I was lucky to take on the UX design team at Adobe and run UX design alongside technology, and that was a very formative part of my career because it was that opportunity to realize that technology and engineering are. I mean, this sounds obvious now because everyone's going to talk about Apple and Tesla and all the companies that are design forward, but at the time that was provocative. That design and engineering would come together. So I share that because. Um, I care more about experience design than I care about technology, and I care about technology a lot. But I'm always thinking about. I think I heard myself use the phrase on this podcast already. What's the best imaginable experience? Like work back from the unmet needs of the person you're building the thing for, and deliver them. And so when I think about that from the question you asked, I think the best imaginable experience for coaching is the voice of a coach. It's not, um, I think the point of arrival for a sensei, maybe I'll share a video with you that was the original video we filmed when we started the company. Um,
oh, I think
uh,
I've seen this.
yeah, and it was, one of
Was it you
my
two in front of a screen trying to get the stick figure to work?
No, no, that was an internal video. This was like our, kind of
Oh,
our
okay.
Kickstarter video, right? It was our vision video. We pulled in a lot of favors and got some incredible creatives to shoot a video for us over 3 or 4 days. That was Meet a Sensei. That's what the video was called. Meet a Sensei, your personal trainer who knows your every move. At the time, with sensors throughout your clothing, she tracks your posture and form. I know this video off by heart, but the video opens. It's a day in the life of three different athletes. Somebody, a kickboxer, somebody doing yoga, and somebody rowing. And the video opens. You see each of them walk up to the bag, practice their yoga in their home. It's dark in Marin, California, at Marin rowing, and you're getting on the water. But they all do one thing. They all take this earbud and put this earbud in their ear, and then they hear the voice of, at the time, the voice of a sensei. It's like a straighten your legs and lift your heart. Pivot faster on your back foot. Use your legs. You'll feel less strain in your back. And so that was always the vision for the company, that the best imaginable experience would be this coach in your ear, and we showed that physically in the video, but it was kind of a metaphor. It was a frozen pea in Adobe After Effects, but, um, for the yoga. Uh, yeah, yeah, you filmed a startup video where you've had an actress and a hairdryer to defrost the pea that's stuck in our ear canal, in an apartment in Oakland. So, true story. Um,
She got a bonus.
yeah, yeah. But that was always the vision, a coach in your ear. And so when bringing that question all the way back to that allows us to ask ourselves questions about what are the right cues to use, what's the right language to use, when's the right time to encourage and nurture. And so, we definitely live in the world of like, sports psychology and, performance coaching and like how to speak to people to unlock their
Yeah,
potential. And you'll know this as a coach. Um, the voice in the athlete's head is probably one of the most fundamentally important things about their performance. It's the stories we tell ourselves. It's the limiting beliefs. I call it. I probably stole this from someone else, but I call it the stopping voice. The voice that's telling you like, maybe I'll just do 8 reps and not 10, or maybe I'll not go up a weight, or maybe I'll just kick to the body instead of kick to the head today. It's like that voice is like, you don't have to. And the coach is very good at quelling and silencing the stopping voice. It's like, you can do
right.
this. Just give me 2 more. Just pivot on your back foot. It's not about your flexibility of your hamstring. It's about your hip position. Just get into the right position. You kick to the head. Well done. And so I think the responsibility and the opportunity we have with ASENSEI, and I hope this doesn't sound kind of creepy in AI, but it's to be that voice in the athlete's head. It's how, fundamentally, if a coach can do that, if a coach can train the voice in the athlete's head, there's kind of something there. There's something philosophical there, right? Of we're programming that voice in your head. We're removing your limiting beliefs. We're showing you your potential, and then we're being mechanical. It's like, give me 2 more squats, and this time, don't tip your torso forward.
Well,
There's the fundamentals. Do you
it's
think that makes
beautifully
sense? I'd love to hear what you think. I mean,
no,
yeah.
it's
Uh,
beautifully said. I think you hit it right on, the nail right on the head because, I think let's face it, the best athletes in the world have that voice in their head, and the best coaches know how to interrupt that tape recorder that's just on replay in their head because it's limiting their performance. It's limiting them somehow. And while we may not be, we're not psychologists, we're not therapists, not really, but they we understand as some of the best coaches, I've got to interrupt that tape on replay. And I've got to overlay that or dub something in that gets them out of this. I can't do that. I can't do that. I can't do that. I can't do that. Instead, I'm going to go Goggins and I'm going to drop a little Goggins little thing in there because this will work on him or her. So I think it's beautifully said.
I
So
love, I used to always, still do love listening to Kobe Bryant on this stuff, the sort of, the Mamba mentality, right? He's known for the Mamba mentality, and he is just, or was, unfortunately, so good at just being able to explain that voice in his head. I saw something very recently, and it was basically on this premise of quitting or not doing another rep or not doing another lap, and he's like, "Oh, no, 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 no. I already negotiated this with myself." And it was this idea that he pre-negotiated his practice. Like the decision on what he was going to do was made before he walked in the hall to do it. So the idea of there being self-negotiation is off the table in the moment. Like, you don't get to negotiate with yourself in practice. You already decided. And, it's just a great example of like how powerful that mindset is. Um, and so, yeah, listen, I want to go from philosophical to practical as well. Like, we're
yeah,
in a moment right now of, our customers are just trying to figure out like, how do I deploy rep counting, and how do I deploy kind of form feedback, and can I use it to personalize a training program? So, we are in a moment where, the vision of what's possible is exciting. And if we've learned one thing in the last even 3 months, never mind 6 months or 12 months, it's like the I've been using this phrase lately. It's the Cambrian explosion of artificial intelligence. For anyone that's unfamiliar with the Cambrian explosion, it was a moment in Paleolithic or Neolithic times where all of a sudden all life kind of appeared at once. It's like everything, like things in the ocean and things in the sky and things in the land, like all just kind of showed up at once. Like what happened there? And what actually happened was the conditions for life. It was the ecosystem and it was the environment that changed. Suddenly, the ocean's at the right temperature. There's enough
Mhm.
carbon dioxide in the atmosphere that the planet's warm and you don't freeze to death, but not so much that it poisons us. There's enough oxygen in the air that we can breathe, but not so much that we explode at the slightest spark. Like just the ecosystem found an equilibrium that was like, wait a minute, this is just perfect. And then life flourished in so many different ways and directions. And I feel like we're in that moment with AI right now. All of a
Yeah.
sudden, you know, it's not the ocean temperature and the carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. It's compute power on my iPhone. It's our ability to build large data centers. It's this, it's that, it's this, the next thing. And so all of a sudden, all of these AI capabilities are available to all of us all at once. And it can be overwhelming, right? And so I think it's super important we get the basics right. There's lots of fear of change right now. It's like, oh, well, yeah, I don't want, nobody wants AI, nobody wants this, like, we're all going to be taken over. It's like, been there before, Gutenberg press to radio to television to the internet to mobile. There are leaders and there are laggards, and you choose your team. And I'm on team leader with AI. But I think the exciting thing is a lot of the conversations you and I have had today are almost, they're very philosophical about like what does this artificial intelligence and this like human-like coached experience look like? And it seems far away, but it only seems far away if you're using the same ruler that we're using to measure like the past decade and not the decade in front of us. Things are just moving exciting for a technology optimist. What a time to be alive working in technology.
That is beautifully said. And I think, I mean, we could go on and on and on. We've already ran long, and I know you're a busy guy and I appreciate your time, but I think I'm just going to wrap it up here. I'm going to say, you know, for our listeners, Stephen is building something that doesn't just coach your body, it coaches beliefs, it coaches to intention. Because, in my opinion, the great ones, the great coaches, they weren't just telling us to drop our hips or breathe deeper or, rotate those shoulders back as Stephen demonstrated. They were teaching us how to handle resistance, how to handle being uncomfortable, to be seen, to try again, to push further, to grow. If that coach you remembered earlier could still whisper in your ear on your worst day or mid rep, what would they say? Now, really, I think this is important. I'm going to ask you guys, the ones listening, what would they say? I know you're hearing those words right now, and I want you to share them in the comments because Steve and I would love to know. And what happens if we are able to embed that into a machine that helps you or assist a live coach in helping you? And if we get it right, if Steven, man, if you get this right, then maybe, just maybe, it doesn't replace the human coach. Maybe it makes us more ready when we meet one. Stephen, where can people find you and the great work you're doing?
You can find me on LinkedIn. That's probably the best place. That's where we're most prolific. That's where we meet the people that work with us. And so definitely follow me on LinkedIn. Really appreciated the conversation. If I can offer one thing, because it would be remiss of me as a coach not to say this. You said a few times, and I appreciate it, that Stephen's building. And if Stephen does this, I'm not building anything we spoke about today. I'm building the team that's building it. And so, credit there. I'm building a karate club. And if I do that job well, they're going to win 10 championships in a row, but they'll win the championships. I'll have built the club. And that's how I think about ASENSEI. I'm creating the conditions for a team of talented people to do their best work. And I'm excited about what's coming down the pipe. So I really appreciate you having me in this conversation.
S- Spoken like an exceptional coach that you are.
I was.
And if this conversation moved you, hit like, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs to hear this. And together, maybe we can make a positive impact at scale. Maybe we can help more people learn, thrive, and flourish by remembering the wisdom of others that help shape us. I'm Adam Howland. This is Non-Filtered. Thank you.